Hello. This video is about the process I used to make my golden octopus crown for the mermaid parade, for my golden octopus costume. So the crown is gold and with gold flowers and gold laurels. And I started out with paddle wire and electrical tape, and I made a form for my head out of these materials, and I used the electrical tape wrapped around the wire to keep the wire from getting tangled in my hair every time I tried it on to make sure it was fitting properly. And as I worked, I needed more structure, so I would add more wire and more shapes and wrapping it all on electrical tape and making sure it felt super comfortable and also super firm, because sometimes when you're marching by the sea wind is really strong, and I wanted this thing to stay on my head. Once I had a stable crown, I started making the shape of the octopus body and the octopus tentacles out of more paddle wire. And I really wanted the shape to feel real, and I wanted it to feel organic, and I wanted it to feel balanced, but at the same time asymmetrical, because that would be more realistic. And then I upgraded to some mesh for sculpting, and I used the wire mesh to form the octopus body that the tentacles were going to be growing out of. And the mesh was necessary in order for all of the materials that I was going to use to build the crown to have something to adhere to. And the mesh is also incredibly light, and that was very important. And once I had the mesh fully done, I went back to my tentacles to perfect them, and I wrapped them in some more electrical tape, and I used yellow this time so I could really see the shapes that I was making, because like I said, it was really important for me to have beautiful curves that felt balanced but were also asymmetrical and felt real, the way real octopus tentacles might look in the ocean. And I also wanted each of the tentacles to be holding a golden flower, and so I had to make sure that the design would accommodate that, and so none of the roses would be bumping to any other tentacle, and that each of the roses would look good and look naturally held by the tentacles no matter where they were, and that they would all be visible from every angle. No matter where spectators would be viewing the crown from, they'd be able to see some of the roses. That was important to me. And I also wanted to make sure there was a lot of curves in these tentacles, so no matter where you were seeing the crown from, you would see some of the suction cups of the octopus's tentacles. And so all of this is what I was thinking about when I was shaping the octopus tentacles at this phase of the design. And it was so fun to make these shapes. And in the back you can see these like almost eyes that I made. Originally I was going to pull my hair through that because I thought pulling my hair through that would make the crown more secure on my head, but it turned out it would pull the crown back and it made it less stable. So I decided to use those openings as ways to create a train of gold flowers that would hang down the back of my hair and the back of the cape and the back of the crown, the back of the costume, to add more drama, more flowers, because the flowers were a symbol that were really important to me in the crown, and I wanted as many flowers as possible in the crown. Then I needed some tin foil, and I've been collecting tin foil for years, and I flattened out all of my tin foil balls into sheets, and I started laying them onto the structure that I made. And every once in a while I needed a little bit of hot glue just to keep it steady, but mostly it's just tin foil sticking to each other. And I shaped it and sculpted the tentacles out of the tin foil and covered the entire crown with the tin foil, and also to help me get a sense of what it would look like when it was a shiny gold color. And I needed to make sure that there was a flat side to the tentacles, because they had to have that flatness that octopus tentacles have, that the suction cups live on. And it was really fun sculpting with tin foil. I love it. I think it's a fantastic material to sculpt a shape out of. It's again extra lightweight, super cheap, especially if you're just saving your scrap tinfoil like I did for years, like wondering when am I going to use this. I finally had a use for it, and I'm so glad that I had saved it all up, because I'm kind of broke right now, and so I didn't have money to be buying any extra materials if I could avoid it. And so the tinfoil was absolutely perfect for this project. And I really liked the way it felt in my hands while I was working, and I really liked how it worked with the material that I used. Originally I was going to do paper mache, but then I changed my mind because paper mache doesn't make the smoothest shapes, and it's a little heavier. to, and I wanted something on my head that was very light because I was going to be wearing it all day, and it needed to be as comfortable as possible. And so I switched materials, and I decided to change from paper mache to foam clay, which is my new favorite material. I absolutely love working with it. And here you can see where I covered it with clay, and I used just like foam balls to make the tentacles. I'd make a ball, I'd press it into the clay base that I made, and then I'd use a chopstick to make the hole in the middle of the tentacle, in the middle of the suction cups. And for the bigger suction cups, I used the back of the chopstick, the wider part, and for the smaller tentacles, I turned the chopstick around and used the narrow side to make the small opening in the suction cups, and it worked really well. And then I mapped out the lines you can see that I drew on top of the clay base was so that I could remember to create some dimension there between each of the tentacles, because between each of the tentacles it had to be a little bit more shallow to feel realistic. And I really love how it came out. Now the important thing, I didn't film any of the painting process, which I should have, but if you're going to paint foam, you want to make sure you prime it first so that the foam doesn't absorb all the paint and have a dull finish. And because I wanted this to feel like metallic gold, it was really important to prime it. So I primed it with Mod Podge, and then I spray painted it with gold. And then I also added some acrylic paint to paint the actual suction cups a slightly lighter color of gold, just a little bit whiter, so that the suction cups popped out and you could really see them and feel the dimension of them, and so it wouldn't feel too flat. And that's my golden octopus crown from the Mermaid Parade. It was incredibly comfortable, incredibly lightweight, and everyone who saw it seemed to really think it was fabulous, and I love how it came out, and it's my favorite mermaid costume so far.